What's going on, everybody? Today I've got ourselves a 2013 Ford Focus Titanium Edition, and as you can see, I've already got stuff apart, been messing with this, and I'm a little puzzled. Not gonna lie, this is kind of tricky. It is here for a ABS fault that has been kind of all over the place. We can see ABS light on, and on a fault scan, let this get in here, we got codes for both rear wheel speed sensors. C003A with a symptom byte of 4A-2B, and it says incorrect component installed. Both sides, both the rears, installed component incorrect, failure types 4A, and the subtype 4B. Fault is currently present. So right rear and right rear, right left. I can't talk. Rear right, rear left. So there we go. Both rear wheel speed sensors setting the same fault code. A little bit of history that I've gotten on this vehicle is that it's been to several shops. It's a car lot that actually owns the car, and they've had it for about a year now, and they can't sell it because of the ABS faults. So it's been to a couple of shops. It's had a few different sets of wheel speed sensors thrown in it. Both the rear hubs have been replaced. It's even been to the Ford dealership here at least twice, and still the same issue. They've also at some point replaced the ABS module. It is right here. This is the original one to the car. Somebody did replace the whole unit with a used one, and I think one of the times it went to the dealership was for the dealership to program it to the car. So this thing's kind of been around, and it's pretty tricky. I'm not yet sure what to make of it. So let's get into this. I'll catch you up to where I'm at with it, and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on with it. Alright, so to start off, we need to know some information. So I've got the all data pulled up here. Let's do C003A. I think that's what the code was. And we're looking for symptom byte 4A here. And it says that right rear wheel speed sensor incorrect component installed, and it says this DTC says due to a incomplete IVD initialization procedure, or when the incorrect type of wheel speed sensor has been installed, bidirectional versus non-bidirectional. For information on wheel speed sensors, we need to refer to operation and description. So let's go there. Let's scroll down until we get to the wheel speed sensor specifically. Okay, right here. On vehicles not equipped with park assist, all 4 wheel speed sensors are active magneto-resistive sensors, so MR sensors, that operate on the Hall effect principle to generate a square wave signal that is proportional to the rotational speed of the wheel. Because these are active sensors receiving voltage from the ABS module, then sending a varying voltage back to the ABS module, they are able to detect much lower rotational speeds than passive magneto-inductive sensors. Each wheel speed sensor is connected to the ABS module by 2 circuits. One circuit provides voltage to the sensor operation, and the other circuit provides sensor input to the module. So we're getting a 12 volt sensor or 12 volt signal and then sending back a signal. Okay. On vehicles equipped with park assist, both rear wheel speed sensors are active. So just the rears, not the fronts, are active bi-directional sensors. Each of the two sensors contain two sensing elements mounted side by side. Because the two sensing elements are mounted next to each other, the two voltage signals are slightly out of phase, which causes one element to generate a voltage signal before the other element. This allows the ABS module to not only determine wheel speed, but also wheel direction for park assist, or active park assist. So I had to do some research on what this active park assist is to know if this vehicle has it or not. And what it is it uses cameras and sensors in the bumpers to know that if you're pulling up alongside to do a parallel park, it can use the front and rear sensors to measure the distance between a parked car in front and behind to know if the car can physically fit in there and do the steering maneuver it needs to get in there. And then it will direct you to like pull on alongside one car, and then it might actually take over the steering wheel and turn it and tell you to put it in reverse, and you back it in and all that stuff. Like it, I think it can actually park itself, kind of. So it needs to know wheel speed, rotation, forward or backwards, and things like that. Now, from my searching, this car does not have this active parking assist. So if I go up here and do active parking, I can't remember if this is where I found it or not. Parking aid, vehicles with, yep, okay. So parking aid component locations, it shows that we should have some sensors in the front bumper up here. And if we get out and look at this thing, we do not have sensors in the front. Okay, so no sensors in the front bumper, but we do have sensors in the rear bumper. Now you can have the rears but not the fronts. The rears is going to be for different stuff like backup warnings and things like that, so make sure you don't hit something while you're backing up. Has nothing to do with the parking aid. So the parking aid will use them, but it's not relevant to this. So hopefully that makes sense. So by our description here, we don't have active park assist, so we should have all 4 sensors be just active MR sensors, and it shouldn't be a sensor that has the 2 sensing elements. Now, I'm not real sure yet if the 2 sensing elements, if it has more wires. To me, I logically thinking, I think, well, you still got to have a power wire and then 2 signal wires if it's looking for 2 sensing elements and it's knowing which one is out of phase from the other. So to me, those sensors should have at least 3 wires, but who knows? Maybe they're doing some kind of voodoo magic where the one sensing element can feed back on the 12 volt side and then the other sensing element on the low side. I'm not real sure, because if we do a wiring diagram, let me get to that. Not parking aid. Right here is the OE diagram for the sensors, and everything is just 2 wires. And from the module, you see we've got right rear sensor high, right rear sensor low. Over here it shows high side as being the signal, and then a ground. So they're polarity basically. So you got 12 volts and then ground. So it's kind of confusing. Like, how can we know for sure what type sensor we have, and how is it supposed to actually look to the car? So it's very, very confusing. On its face value, it seems like we've got the wrong sensors installed. That's what the code is for. But they've had multiple sensors put in it. Supposedly at one point even some Ford sensors were installed. I do know right now they are not Ford sensors that are installed in this, so I'm not real sure. Let me get the picoscope out and hooked up and kind of show you what I've seen as far as signals to the sensors, what kind of signals they produce, and as well as do some other little tests. So really quick, I wanted to just show you one simple test. So we've got both sensors right now say incorrect component installed, and we know from our service information all 4 sensors should be MR sensors. Okay, so I've got the front sensor out unplugged right here. Okay, now the fronts and the rears are different sensors because of how they mount and everything. Okay, but they are the same plug. So if I just take this one here, unplug it, we're now going to rescan this. Let's do just a clear code and let it rescan. Okay, right rear open or short to battery. The rear left is still incorrect because I've only got one sensor unplugged, the right rear. So circuit wise, it knows if a sensor is plugged up. So what about if we take this sensor, unplug this one, let's plug this one in here. So if this is a wrong sensor, it should flag the code for this front right wheel now. So let's do clear codes and see, I've got my front one here. Let it rescan. Still the same 2 codes. Right rear, open, short to battery, and then incorrect component installed. So right there, the car should be happy with that sensor. So let's take the front one and let's plug the front one up into the rear here. Okay? Do the same thing. Let's clear this code. And now pay attention to the symptom bot. The symptom bots is what we're looking at. The symptom bot is going to tell us what the module thinks is wrong. So 15 was open, unplugged, and 4A is incorrect component. And look at that, 4A, incorrect component, back here. This sensor is completely happy in the front because it is the front sensor, and the rear sensor is now happy in the front. Logically thinking, that to me tells me the sensor is fine. There's nothing wrong with the sensor. The sensor is the correct type, because if it was the incorrect type, why did the front not recode it as incorrect? Let that sink in for a little bit. Okay, so an experiment I've got set up here. I've got the picoscope here set up and laptop set up. You guys will see the screen recording off of that, as well as scan tool here. I know you're not going to see this, but I've got it graphing the wheel speed sensors. That screen capture is going as well. I've got my magnet. So these sensors being MR sensors, they are looking for a magnetic tone ring. So I should be able to trigger this thing with a magnet and see what kind of signal this thing produces. Now, my research into MRs is that the ABS modules usually just really rely on current, how much current the sensor is pulling when it's in its on or off state. This one could be actually looking at the voltage drop, I guess. I'm not real sure. The service information kind of makes you think it's looking at the voltage. So I've got two channels. Channel A is in my purple wire here, which is the signal wire according to the diagram. The yellow wire is listed as the ground wire. So we should have high voltage, 12 volts, and then ground. And on the picoscope here, that's what we've got. We've got 12 volts and nothing. So let's set you guys here where you can kind of see. And what I'm going to do is just wave this across the front of the sensor. And you can see on the picoscope the slight square wave in the 12 volt side. And then on the scan tool, you can see that spike. So that's a known good sensor, what it should look like. Now I'm going to take the one from the rear, plug it up here, do the same test. So you can see we've got the front sensor in here right now. So let's take this one here. And I'm sure I'm going to be setting all kinds of fault codes, and I'm not really too worried about that. Don't really care. Let's stick the rear sensor in here. Okay. And everything's still rolling. Now this one, it bolts in there, and the ring is on the front side of this one. So we're going to have to trigger across the front. And on the Pico, you can see a little bit of a square wave. And we can get some mile an hour on the scan tool. So that looks like a good working MR sensor according to what the Pico shows and what scan tool shows. So let's do the same test with the rear. All right, so at the rear back here, I've got the sensor from the front plugged up. It's still pinned in exactly the same way. Blue is on my high side, red is on my low side. And let's set you guys here doing the same test. Got the scope rolling and everything. And if I take this and just wave across the front of the sensor, you can see on the scope I've got good square waves making, but the scan tool is not showing any kind of signal being generated. I have nothing here on my rear right. So it's kind of strange. Let's put the rear sensor in right here and see what it looks like. Alright, got the rear sensor in here now, and same test as on the front. Wave a magnet across the front, and we've got signal being generated and nothing on the scan tool. So pretty interesting. Yeah, nothing on the scan tool. Where would you guys go with this? It's golly, that sun, it's getting bad. It's getting a little confusing, ain't it? We've got two sensors, one from the front, one from the rear. Both seem to function in the front perfectly fine. It's very interesting. I'm kind of at a loss with it of what's actually happening with this thing. And this is where I basically decided to bring you guys along. I'm starting to think there's some kind of programming issue or something, but if we remember, that code description says something about the IVD, I think that's what it was labeled, initialization could have been done incorrectly. So maybe that's what we need to do with this thing. We need to do a initialization function to see if it relearns these sensors correctly or something. So I'm going to put the wheels and tires back on this thing, put the sensors back in it, because I don't feel like I'm dealing with a circuit issue or a sensor issue, because the sensors are working in both positions, and it's only setting a code for the rear, and we can see the signal actuate correctly on the rear. So it's kind of got me puzzled, like I said. So let me get this put back together, and we'll try to do this vehicle initialization function thing. Before I put this rear back together, I wanted to show you that this hub is new. These studs are clearly new. This is clearly new. Let me see if I can get you in here. I don't know if you can, I can't really see the camera, but maybe you guys can see that that's right there is new. The back side of it, this whole rear hub assembly is brand new, and we're going to prove that the magnet is working in there and the sensor is reading this. So let me get this finished put together. All right, and part of my research, looking over the wiring diagrams and stuff, I found one common place other than the module where the two sensors kind of share a common feature, and that is this connector right here. I think this is connector C238 or something like that. I'm not real sure. I'll show you a diagram of it. But I'm now pinned into the wires going to the right rear, still in my high side and my low side here. And so you guys can see the picoscope rolling. We're going to prove that we've got good signal getting from here to at least that connector. And by having 12 volts, we know we're still connected to the ABS module. So if I just take this wheel and just spin it, you can see that square wave, nice and repetitive on the scope. And yet, scan data still shows nothing. So, sensor's working, the wire is there, the 12 volts, it's got to be reading the 12 volts because the ground side stays at ground no matter what. So it's only looking at the 12 volt side, I think. Well, it seems like anyway. So I want to do one other test. I want to verify that the module is functioning somewhat correctly. We already know if we unplug the sensor, we get a circuit open or short to battery. So what if we short that sensor to the ground side with a test light? What code will we set? All right, so I've got my favorite test light here, my high impedance, very low current test light, just pinned across my wires here. So high side, ground side, and you can see the bulb is lit. It's not super bright, and we've got a new code here, short to ground. And on the picoscope, we're sitting at 8 volts with my test light in there. So the ground path is good. If the ground was bad, we'd see the red channel come up off of 0. So we're good there. The voltage itself is being pulled down. So if we take this and just kind of unplug this out of here, okay, we can see we get back up to close to battery voltage. Let's clear the code, and we should have our 4A code come back. Yep, 4A. So we know the module is capable of seeing open circuit, or what it perceives as a short to battery voltage, a short to ground, the wires jump together, and a supposed incorrect component. But testing everything seems to match exactly like it should. So I'm back to, in my head, thinking software. So let's run the initialization function on the scan tool and see if that works. I'm probably still gonna have to get the jack stands out from under the car, because I think we're probably gonna have to be parked on level flat ground for it to learn the G sensor and everything. So let me get the car on the ground and we'll try to basically do this special function of this, what do they call it, a IVD, interactive vehicle dynamic initialization sequence. So we're gonna try that. All right, moment of truth. I'm not too hopeful about it, but let's give it a go. All right, so before performing this procedure, please ensure that the following operations are completed. Don't shake or bounce the vehicle. Ensure that you are not pressing the brake pedal. Park the vehicle on level ground. Do not press the accelerator pedal. Bring the steering wheel to the straight ahead position. Do not move the steering wheel. Okay, we've got all that checked. So let's hit OK. I'm guessing we got to do each one of these separately. It says key on, engine off. So let's turn the key off, key on. Let it do its thing here. None of these seem to be related to wheel speed sensors, though. Turn the ignition off. Okay. So let's do the next one. Maybe key needs to be on. Yep. I'm just gonna run through all these and see if anything changes. Like I said, I'm not real hopeful about it. It's been my experience with specifically Volkswagens They do not like aftermarket sensors at all. They're MR sensors also. I've just never had good luck with aftermarket MR sensors. So I think if I run through this and nothing changes, I think just as a diagnostic standpoint, I have to change the sensor to a known good Ford sensor. Now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because of the front sensor. It is a Ford sensor, the rears are not. But not really left with a whole lot. What are you guys thinking? Where would you go with this? This thing's even had new, well, not new, but they've replaced the rear wheels on this car because somebody told them that the wheels were bent, and that's what was causing the issue. The wheels are still in the trunk, the original wheels. Just crazy car here we got. So let's read the DTCs. We're gonna try to clear them because I'm sure there's all kind of codes in here for me messing around with it. So, so these, they're still saying fault is currently present. And the codes come right back. Yeah, I wasn't real hopeful with that. Yep. This is a tough one, guys. This is a tough one. I feel like we're gonna have to get some OEM sensors. I've been told they've had OEM sensors in it, but they're not OEMs in it right now. So I guess I'll wait until I can get to the parts store Monday, and hopefully they'll have these sensors in stock. We'll go from there.